I stood there in a perfectly tailored suit, waiting 5 full hours for Michelle, only to receive the news that she had been in a car accident and lost her memory. Even when the engagement was called off on the spot at the wedding and I became the laughingstock of all the guests, my heart was still entirely with Michelle. Yet the very next second, backstage, I heard her icy voice. As long as I pretend to have amnesia and don't get married for now, it doesn't count as betraying Frederick. Just 1 year. He'll wait. Once I'm tired of playing around, I'll naturally marry him. And he must form a marriage alliance with the Sue family. Other than marrying me, who else could he marry? As she spoke, she ran her hand over her male secretary's abs and kissed him intimately. Later, when I walked toward her aunt wearing that same suit, Michelle suddenly recovered her memory and screamed hysterically that she was my bride. But I turned back to look at her with complete indifference. Sorry, I don't know you. Chapter 1. The wedding ended in chaos. Looking disheveled, I slipped into the backstage area, planning to change out of this unbearable suit, but through a crack in the door, I caught a glimpse of the scene inside. Michelle Sue was entwined with her male secretary, Fernando, her arms wrapped tightly around his lean waist, unwilling to let go even for a moment. My darling, you're so smart. Pretending to lose your memory means you can spend more time with me. Anyway, that idiot at home will only think you've changed because of the amnesia. Michelle suddenly stopped, her brows knitting together, her gaze sharp enough to pierce through Fernando. Watch your mouth. I'm willing to fool around with you. That's already me betraying him. I won't allow you to insult Frederick again. He's the one I love most. The coldness in her eyes made Fernando wisely shut up, responding instead with even more intimate movements. And I stood outside the door, watching it all. A roaring filled my ears, my body jolting as if I'd fallen into an icy abyss. I dug my nails into my palm, as collapse and despair surged through me like overwhelming waves. Just the day before, Michelle had lit up the entire city with fireworks, declaring to the world that she belonged to me alone. Her eyes were full of passion as she clutched my hand tightly. There's only one Frederick in this world, the only one I could ever love to the point of unbearable pain. Then what was all this in front of me now? I leaned heavily against the wall just to keep myself from collapsing. The woman who once promised me a lifetime had turned me into the biggest joke just so she could be entangled with someone else. I lifted my eyes toward the window, where fireworks filled the sky in dazzling brilliance. It was the fireworks display Michelle had prepared for me in advance. My eyes burned, yet not a single tear fell. At that moment, my phone vibrated with a message. Frederick, don't worry. I'll fall in love with you again. Believe me. That reminded me of the day I agreed to marry into her family. When she said, people who betray sincere love will have to swallow 1,000 needles. Frederick, trust me. She had stood on her tiptoes to kiss me, crying and laughing at the same time. Her eyes filled with excited, joyful tears. How could I not believe her? But the truth was right in front of me now. Listening to the conversation inside the room, I finally realized that the late-night meals I'd received during my recent overtime work all came from the restaurant downstairs from Fernando's place. I must have eaten from there more than 10 times. Yet Fernando had only joined the company a week ago. I staggered back to the villa, intending to erase every trace of myself. At that moment, Michelle pushed the door open. Her gaze landed on me with feigned unfamiliarity, then quickly shifted away in guilt. Frederick, even though I've lost my memory, I'll still treat you well. One day, we'll still get married. My dad said you were really looking forward to our future, weren't you? Yes, I had said that. I wanted to marry her as soon as possible and build a happy family together. I once believed Michelle would surely be a good wife and a good mother. Only now did I realize how terribly wrong I was. I didn't answer, making an excuse. I went into the study and called my father. Since Michelle has lost her memory, she definitely won't remember me anymore. There's no point in me continuing to cling to this. Let's change the marriage alliance. My father sighed, concern in his voice. Besides Michelle Sue, the Sue family only has her aunt, Adriana Sue. She's dignified and steady, and you played together as children. Would that be acceptable? I froze for a moment, then answered with absolute seriousness. But I have one condition. 1 week from now, arrange an accident for me. Only if I lose my memory can I truly say goodbye to this relationship. After the alliance was finalized, I pushed the door open and collided straight into Michelle's arms. Chapter 2. I looked through the diary I kept before. Michelle said softly, "Didn't you really like going to amusement parks? I've already called and booked the entire park. I'll ride the Ferris wheel with you." "Okay. HM. Seeing me lost in thought, Michelle pulled me straight into her arms, as if she truly couldn't bear to let me go. But my gaze was fixed only on the phone lying on the table behind her. On the screen were messages Fernando had sent, one provocation after another. "Sweetie, pick which tie feels the most exciting. I'll put it on right away and show you. Just don't be so rough this time. Okay, you're way too dominant." The shirt buttons popped off again. How am I supposed to wear the white shirt you like so much? I suppressed the nausea surging in my chest and calmly pushed Michelle away. "Your phone's ringing." Michelle spun around to check the messages, her expression visibly flustered. To cover up her unease, she pretended to be impatient. It's those old men at the company again. The moment something happens, they come looking for me. So annoying. My injuries aren't even healed yet. Forget it. Being with you is more important. She abandoned the phone and pulled me into the car on her own. Along the way, she recited bits and pieces from the diary in a mechanical way, trying hard to look affectionate. Yet she overlooked the spare phone in the car. The wallpaper on it was Fernando. Across the screen were the bold words, "My exclusive." There had once been many exclusives that belonged to me too. Michelle had built a private lounge on the top floor of the company building, where someone was assigned every day to replace the wine with my favorite vintage. Only I was allowed to use it. The passenger seat beside her had also been mine alone. But when I noticed a strange cufflink under the seat, I knew that was no longer the case. When we arrived at the amusement park, there really were no other visitors. Every staff member existed solely to serve the two of us. Michelle held my hand and led me to the entrance of the Ferris wheel, her eyes gentle as water. "Frederick, once I truly remember all the beautiful moments from our past, I will definitely marry you." I had waited 6 years for this marriage, but this time, there was no need anymore. Michelle instructed the staff to open the entrance gate. Just as we took our first step forward, a tall, well-built figure with handsome features walked toward us from the distance. Fernando, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, his collar slightly open. "President Michelle, I have an urgent matter to report. Could I possibly?" Michelle's Adam's apple bobbed. The subtle tension between the two of them was nauseating. I looked up at Michelle. "Go ahead. Don't worry about me. After all, the Ferris wheel should be ridden by two people who truly love each other." I didn't want to sit with someone so fake. There was hesitation in Michelle's eyes, but her toes were already pointing toward Fernando. "I'll be right back," she said it, then followed Fernando eagerly toward the distance. The entrance had already been opened. I chose to go up alone. The Ferris wheel slowly began to turn. The fireworks Michelle had arranged in advance were lit on schedule, blooming brilliantly against the starry sky. Reflected in the glass window, I could clearly see my own haggard face, and I could also see, down on the ground, Fernando pinning Michelle against the wall, the two of them intimate like lovers. They say every cabin of the Ferris wheel is filled with happiness, but at this moment, I sat alone in mine. The dazzling fireworks blossomed and faded in the sky, just like Michelle's love, fleeting in an instant. The silence was broken the next second by my phone vibrating. "Frederick, look up. The fireworks were specially prepared for you. I think I've fallen in love with you all over again." Chapter 3. After the Ferris wheel completed a full round, Michelle was standing at the exit waiting for me. She carefully helped me down and pulled me tightly into her arms. "I promise I'll never leave you behind because of work again. I already gave that assistant a dressing down just now. Leaving you up there alone." I was worried sick. Suppressing my disgust, I subtly pushed her away. The unfamiliar men's cologne on her was unbearably pungent. She had once said she despised anything cheap the most. Now that I thought about it, the cheapest thing of all was probably her. Michelle held me as we walked to the car, only to see Fernando already sitting quite naturally in the passenger seat. She lost control and kicked the car door, fury edging her voice. "Who gave you permission to sit in the passenger seat? Get the hell in the back." Fernando clenched his teeth, got out unwillingly, and moved to the back seat. Along the way, Michelle seemed to be chatting with me, but her eyes kept drifting to the rearview mirror. A quick glance, then another, pretending it was unintentional, but I could see it too, reflected in the glass. Fernando licked his lips provocatively, tugging down his collar from time to time, deliberately showing off his collarbones and chest muscles. Michelle's breathing grew rapid, as if she had already forgotten I was there. Truly two people lower than beasts. At this point, I was only grateful that the wedding had been interrupted. After a while, Fernando took the initiative to talk to me and added me on WeChat. Michelle snatched the phone away guiltily and deleted him, frowning in displeasure. "My fiancé doesn't like adding irrelevant people. Don't try to get close. Did you forget the employee code of conduct?" Though she claimed to have lost her memory, she still remembered those subtle details perfectly, blurting them out without hesitation. Habits can't be hidden. Without saying a word, I took my phone back and quietly added Fernando again. The moment I accepted his friend request, he sent me a series of videos. I muted them and played them silently. Every single one was of Michelle being intimate and ambiguous with him. Yet the Michelle in front of me was still holding my hand affectionately. "Tomorrow I'll go to the hospital and properly treat my amnesia. I want to recover as soon as possible so I can marry you more legitimately. When we have children in the future, I'll buy an entire amusement park, just for our family. When the child goes to kindergarten, I'll personally take them to and from school, run for head of the parents' committee, donate a building to the kindergarten. The child would be happy, right?" A dreamy smile hung on Michelle's lips, as if the scenes she described were right in front of her. But in the videos on my phone, she was nothing but filth, just as dirty as her heart, and everything she spoke of was nothing more than her own fantasy. Because in 1 week, I would be marrying someone else. and I would no longer remember the Michelle standing before me. I forced myself to suppress the bitterness in my chest and pulled out a smile uglier than crying. Michelle noticed immediately. She pulled the car over to the side of the road, turned back, and ordered coldly, "Get out. My fiancé is unhappy." Fernando tried to persist, but her icy, merciless gaze frightened him into backing off. Unwilling, he slammed the door and got out. Michelle quickly leaned closer to me, reaching out as if to smooth the crease between my brows. All right, don't frown. I'll never let anyone else ride in my car again. From now on, I'll only carry you. Once I recover my memory, we'll hold the wedding immediately. Then I'll belong completely to you." Her gaze was gentle as water. She didn't notice that I had already received the message confirming that her aunt had agreed to the marriage alliance. Relieved, I quietly turned off my phone. "Michelle, you can wait to recover your memory. You can wait until you're tired of Fernando and move on to someone else. But I, too, have a bright future ahead of me. I won't waste my time waiting for someone who betrays me again and again." Chapter 4. Dad, I've already lost my memory and I haven't recovered yet. Didn't we agree to postpone my wedding with Frederick for a year? Then why is the wedding date and venue still all over the news? Michelle bent slightly forward, lowering her voice as she questioned old Master Sue about the wedding reports. But the moment she heard my footsteps, she immediately hung up the phone. Her expression softened at once. "Why didn't you sleep a little longer?" "Wait here. I'll go make you breakfast." Michelle hurried into the kitchen, seasoning carefully and constantly watching the heat. "Frederick, no matter how I treated you in the past, from now on I promise I'll slowly fall in love with you. And in the end, I'll marry you just as we wish, but it might take a long time. Are you willing to wait?" When she received no answer from me for a long while, Michelle's back stiffened slightly for no reason. Perhaps out of guilt, she didn't continue pressing the question. She attentively watched me eat breakfast and personally washed the dishes afterward. In a hoarse voice, I suggested, "Come with me to the flower shop." Her eyes lit up. "Okay." Michelle wiped her hands and helped me put on my coat. At the flower shop, she pretended to ask what kind of flowers I liked. "White jasmine." The moment she heard that, she froze, because I hated jasmine the most. Michelle forced herself to pick out a bouquet for me, then received a message. As expected, she looked at me with guilt filling her eyes and was just about to speak when I interrupted her. "Company business. Right, go ahead. I'll be fine." She acted extremely reluctant, but her steps were hurried. Holding the jasmine bouquet, I walked out of the flower shop and immediately spotted the staged accident vehicle my father had arranged for me. Across the road, I clearly saw Michelle wrapping her arms around Fernando and kissing him passionately, completely ignoring the eyes around them. Then she took a key out of her pocket. The men hugged her happily and kissed her hard. My phone buzzed. Michelle bought me an apartment. She told me personally that whenever I need her, she'll come to the apartment to be with me. Maybe even when you two hold your wedding in the future, who knows? Oh, I almost forgot. Michelle said she loves me to death. Do you think I have a chance to replace you and become her husband? I swallowed the bitterness and turned off my phone. As the car drove toward me, I resolutely walked to the roadside. The moment I was hit, everything in my mind surged together, like a chaotic slurry. When I fell to the ground, the pure white jasmine flowers scattered everywhere. Later, I was sent into an extremely quiet room. All memories related to Michelle slowly peeled away from my mind. My head throbbed violently as I slowly opened my eyes. Seeing me wake up, my father rushed forward, worry written all over his face. "You really scared me to death. Was it worth doing this for Michelle?" I froze, my mind completely blank. Who is Michelle? Chapter 5. The psychologist pulled my father aside to explain the effects of the hypnosis, and also advised him not to mention the name Michelle again in the future. Otherwise my memories might become confused. I lay on the bed, listening in a daze, when suddenly someone rushed in through the doorway. It was Adriana. There was a trace of panic on her face as she hurried over to me, stepping straight into my line of sight. "Frederick, I heard you were in a car accident, so I rushed back from abroad. How are you? Are you okay?" Adriana lifted the leg of my suit pants. When she saw that it was only a minor abrasion, she finally let out a sigh of relief. I quietly took her hand and smiled, shaking my head. "I'm fine." Once I recovered a little, Adriana brought me back to her own villa, where a family doctor took care of my recuperation. It also made it convenient for us to discuss the wedding arrangements. At the Sue residence, it was inevitable that someone would occasionally mention the name Michelle Sue, yet I showed no reaction at all. Adriana cupped my face and looked at me with utmost seriousness. "I've heard about what happened with the previous wedding. Frederick, don't worry, I will definitely treat you well." I stepped forward and held her tightly. Without saying a word, I would come to love the woman in front of me, but it would take time. On the other side, Michelle was lying on the bed in the apartment, holding Fernando in her arms. Michelle teasingly ran her fingers through Fernando's hair, kissed him fiercely, then suddenly seemed to remember something. "You'd better stop smoking in the future. If my fiancé smells it, I'll make sure you pay for it." Fernando ingratiatingly burrowed into her arms and was just about to continue when the phone by the bed rang. Michelle answered it, and before long, she sat up excitedly. Really? My aunt is getting married? That's not easy at all. I heard she's had a Prince Charming in her heart all this time, which is why she stayed single until now. Looks like true lovers finally end up together. Congratulations to her. After hanging up, Michelle quickly buttoned her shirt, then turned back and pinched Fernando's chin. I have to go home. My aunt is getting married tomorrow. I need to discuss what gift to buy with Frederick. Fernando wrapped his arms around her waist and complained. You only ever spend such a short time with me. Do you even love? Michelle frowned. You need to be clear about your position. I never said I loved you. Fernando bit his teeth in frustration, then gathered his courage and spoke again. I've already prepared. He was only halfway through when the woman hurried off. Back home, Michelle opened the door and called out, Frederick, but there was no response, only an empty echo. She searched the entire villa, yet there was no sign of Frederick anywhere. For some reason, a sense of unease rose in her. She quickly took out her phone and dialed a number she had specially marked, but no one answered. Michelle paced back and forth in the living room, making countless calls without being able to reach Frederick. Instead, she discovered news that Frederick had been in a car accident. He had suffered a blow to the head. Just as Michelle was calling Frederick again in near hysteria, it was Fernando's call that came through instead. Chapter 6. The woman hung up abruptly, afraid that an important call might not get through. Not long after, Fernando called again. Michelle answered impatiently and shouted in fury, if you have something to say, type it. Get lost. Fernando swallowed his anger and replied quickly. It's serious. Someone sent a wedding invitation for your aunt to the company, but... His voice grew quieter. But the groom is actually Frederick. Michelle froze, utterly unable to believe her ears. Clenching her teeth, she cursed. If you want to climb up the ladder, you don't have to make up something like this to lie to me. Fernando, I really didn't think you could be this despicable. Despite being scolded viciously, Fernando still took a photo of the wedding invitation and sent it to Michelle. If you don't believe me, see for yourself. You talk about Frederick every day, and now he's about to marry your aunt. Do you really think you can compete with her? And let me tell you, I'm already prepared to make our relationship public. No matter how hysterical Fernando became, Michelle remained unmoved. She only kept enlarging the image of the invitation on her phone, zooming in on the name Frederick. There was also a sweet photo of the couple. Frederick was smiling sincerely. Michelle clenched her phone tightly, as if her soul had been drained, her lips trembling uncontrollably. How is this possible? Frederick has been with me for almost 6 years, and now he's marrying my aunt. This has to be a joke. She said it was a joke, yet the sense of dread in her heart only grew stronger. Michelle stared fixedly at one point, her vision blurring in an instant. Then, as if something snapped, she hurled the phone in her hand to the ground, shattering it. No. Frederick. Frederick, don't scare me like this. How could this be possible? Michelle Sue's eyes burned red, her entire body trembling. After an unknown amount of time, the woman finally came to her senses and drove straight to the Sue residence. Old Master Sue was already waiting at the gate with others, frowning as he looked at his out-of-control daughter. I'm telling you, don't think I don't know you pretended to lose your memory and drove Frederick to this state. Now that he's finally engaged to your aunt, don't you dare cause trouble. Michelle nearly dropped to her knees in front of Old Master Sue, desperately controlling her shaking voice as she pleaded. I know I was wrong. Please let me see Frederick. How could you agree to let him marry my aunt? This is too absurd. Old Master Sue didn't say much. He only thought of what his younger sister Adriana had once said, that in this lifetime, she would marry no one but Frederick. He let out a long sigh. Calm yourself down. With that, he signaled the bodyguards to restrain Michelle, intending to let his sister finish her wedding first. Chapter 7. In the blink of an eye, I was already seated in front of the mirror, dressed in a bespoke suit, light gleaming in my eyes. The old butler, who had watched Adriana grow up since childhood, adjusted my tie for me. Looking at my reflection in the mirror, he couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Miss Adriana has talked about Frederick all these years. Now she's finally gotten her wish. I'm truly happy for her. Putting everything else aside, even an old man like me can swear on my honor, Frederick marrying our Adriana will definitely bring happiness. I patted his hand and nodded with a light smile. These days spent with Adriana felt like being given a brand new version of myself. She was attentive and considerate, respected every one of my thoughts, and silently supported me from behind. Our personalities fit each other extremely well. She was a few years older than me and knew how to be more tolerant and understanding. Honestly, I hadn't expected things to go this smoothly between us. Just then, my phone vibrated. Husband, I can't wait to see you anymore. I've already started missing you. 5 more minutes, it feels so long. The old butler happened to see it too, and we exchanged a knowing smile. When the time came, the butler accompanied me out of the backstage area, and there, head on, I ran into a face that felt both unfamiliar and strangely familiar. The woman's eyes were bloodshot, dark circles heavy beneath them, exhaustion written all over her face. Her hands were clenched tightly, a hot tear sliding down her cheek. "Frederick, how could you marry my aunt?" I froze slightly, looking at the unfamiliar woman. I spoke with difficulty. "Sorry, I don't know you." My words seemed to deeply stimulate her. Her brows knitted together as she stared at my face in confusion. "Frederick, if you're angry, you can scold me, hit me, if you really want to kill me. That's fine too. But please don't say something like that. It feels like I'm going to die." I had no idea why she was so emotional and was just about to ask when a staff member hurried over to call me to enter. I straightened my suit and, surrounded by the staff, stepped toward the wedding hall. That woman, however, chased after me relentlessly. It took several bodyguards to barely restrain her. As the doors to the venue opened wide, I looked across with joy at Adriana. She smiled back at me, as if she wished she could fly straight into my arms. My father linked his arm with mine, and we walked forward step by step, hearts filled with excitement. But halfway down the aisle, a dark figure suddenly rushed up from below the stage. The crowd erupted in an uproar. The first to react was Old Master Sue. "Michelle, don't you dare cause trouble. This is your aunt's wedding, not a place for you to run wild." So she was Michelle. Michelle clenched her fists tightly, nearly completely out of control. "Frederick, look at me carefully. I'm your fiancé. How could you possibly forget me?" My father shielded me behind him and warned her sternly. "My son is about to marry your aunt. You should address him as your uncle-in-law. That's what's appropriate." Hearing that absurd form of address felt like a knife piercing Michelle's heart. Ignoring everyone's attempts to stop her, she lunged forward, trying to grab me. I looked at her with vigilance and complete unfamiliarity. "I truly don't know who you are, and today is Adriana's and my wedding. Could you please stop causing trouble, miss?" Chapter 8. Michelle's pupils trembled as she stared at me in disbelief. "Miss Frederick, I'm the woman you loved for 6 years. How can you call me something like that?" Seeing how agitated she was, something suddenly occurred to me. "A few days ago, I saw news saying you lost your memory in a car accident. Maybe that's the reason. You've mistaken me for someone else. Miss, I am Frederick, Adriana's groom." After saying that, I lifted my head and signaled to Adriana. Adriana raised her hand, summoning the bodyguards to drag the troublemaking woman away. "I'll let it slide this time since you're a junior, but if you dare disturb my husband again, then as your aunt, I'll discipline you properly on your father's behalf." Michelle was instantly restrained, completely unable to resist, and the wedding was finally able to continue as planned. Holding the bouquet, I walked step by step toward Adriana under everyone's gaze, toward the woman I loved. I embraced Adriana with a heart full of happiness. This was the most peaceful moment of my life. Everyone below the stage looked at us with blessings in their eyes. Everyone, except one person, Michelle, forcibly held down below the stage, crying in despair. Her lips moved over and over, but I couldn't hear what she was saying. I averted my gaze and looked at Adriana instead. The moment the diamond ring was placed on my finger, tears of happiness fell uncontrollably. After the wedding, to avoid the chaos back home, Adriana took me out on a yacht. She mixed cocktails for me and lay with me on the deck, basking in the sun. I knew there was a blank space in my memory, but at this moment, it felt as though many things had been filled in. Before sunset, we docked. Just then, Adriana received a phone call. That disgrace Michelle Sue is now shouting about cutting ties with the Sue family. What kind of monster did I raise? You should hurry and see what the news is saying. Adriana immediately understood what that meant and took the tablet to check the headlines. To her shock, there were photos of Michelle and my wedding plastered all over the news, along with posts Michelle had published online. Frederick only forgot me because of his amnesia, so his marriage to my aunt cannot count. This is taking advantage of someone in a vulnerable state. Adriana Sue stared hard at the screen, then tilted her head back and pressed her temples. The Sue family was the wealthiest in the city. A perfectly good marriage had been forcibly turned into a scandal by Michelle Sue. The entire Sue household was thrown into chaos. When Adriana and I returned home, Fernando stormed straight toward me, shouting furiously, "Since you got into a car accident, why didn't you just die? Only losing your memory, what kind of outcome is that? Now Michelle is completely obsessed with you. She dumped me. You hypocrite." Adriana was about to step forward, but I held her hand to stop her. I walked a few steps closer, looked at the deranged Fernando, and said calmly, "I truly don't remember having any relationship with Michelle. I only know that she's affecting my life now. If you're really her boyfriend, then please keep her under control." Those words seemed to strike a nerve. His teeth clenched audibly as his fist suddenly tightened. "Are you mocking me? Don't think that just because she says she loves you, she really does." On my very first day at work, I was able to enter her company's private lounge. I heard that room was specially prepared for you, but I used it. From that day on, every moment of every day, as long as I crooked my finger, Michelle would come and keep me company. She loves me. Chapter 9. Before I could even react, Fernando was suddenly shoved to the ground. The person who appeared was none other than Michelle. Her chest heaved violently as she stood over Fernando, looking down at him from above. "Don't you dare lie through your teeth. When did I ever say I loved you? You were nothing more than my toy. If Frederick really believed your bullshit, I'd kill you myself." Fernando propped himself up on the ground, tears streaming down his face as he looked at Michelle in disbelief. "I don't believe you never loved me at all. You say that with your mouth, but you must have loved me in your heart. You wouldn't be this cruel." Hearing that, Michelle suddenly turned around and hurriedly explained to me, "Frederick, I was just playing around with him every time. I never had real feelings. You're the only one in my heart. I would never let something like this really happen." Listening to her words, I simply pieced together the whole story in my mind, but felt no extra emotion. Fernando, however, completely broke down. He burst into loud sobs, rushed forward, and clung to Michelle's leg, crying uncontrollably. "Michelle, why are you going back on your word? When we were together, you said you liked me the most. Why are you saying this now?" Michelle shot me a panicked glance, then grabbed Fernando by the shoulders and unexpectedly dragged him toward the roadside. "Get the hell away from me. I don't want to see you ever again." The words had barely left her mouth when a car came speeding past. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere. I quickly pulled Adriana into my arms, blocking her view. Fernando was crushed beneath the car and died on the spot. Michelle only cast a cold glance at him, as if nothing had happened at all. She then turned back, tears filling her eyes as she looked at me. "Frederick, see, I really don't love this man. Give me one more chance, okay? I know you've just lost your memory. Otherwise, you would never be so heartless as to abandon me. After all, we loved each other for 6 whole years." Adriana could no longer endure it. She strode forward and shielded me behind her, frowning as she shouted angrily, "You're a complete lunatic now. Cheating, pretending to have amnesia, and now taking a life. Are you even human anymore? Frederick and I are already married. You'd better recognize your place." Michelle clenched her fists. There was no trace of respect for her elder left in her eyes as she sneered coldly. "And I have to say this. You knew full well that Frederick and I loved each other for 6 years, and yet you snatched him away halfway. That's not something an elder should do." Smack. Adriana raised her hand and slapped Michelle across the face, her chest heaving with rage. "I see you really don't know your own limits. Didn't you say you didn't want to be part of the Sue family anymore? Fine, I'll grant your wish. You're done as company president too, and after causing a death today, don't even think about the Sue family helping you clean this up. Get out." Adriana Sue turned around and pulled me straight into the Sue residence. As she walked, she issued orders. "From now on, Michelle is no longer part of the Sue family. Don't let her in again. Call the police immediately and have her arrested." Yes. Locked outside the gates, Michelle began kicking the door like a madwoman, screaming herself hoarse. "Frederick, if one day you recover your memory, you will remember me. You will, and you will regret marrying her." Chapter 10. Fernando's death had a significant impact on the Sue family. However, Michelle voluntarily turned herself in, and the Sue family promptly issued a public statement, making it clear that they would not shelter a criminal. Public anger quickly shifted entirely toward Michelle. As for the things Michelle had said back then, I felt nothing. Over the next few days, I simply stayed by Adriana's side to deal with the mess Michelle had left behind. Adriana went several days without proper sleep. I personally cooked some soup and brought it to her study. Holding her hand, I looked at her with unusual firmness. "Whether or not I ever recover my memories, my love for you is real. Don't worry." Adriana froze for a moment, the tips of her ears turning slightly red. I knew that her relentless work day and night was also driven by fear that I might regain my memory because of Michelle's words and leave her. Hearing what I said, Adriana affectionately rubbed my hair and looked at me carefully, smiling softly. "I believe you. From now on, I'll only treat you better and better, until you can't live without me, being my husband for the rest of your life." That form of address made my face flush instantly. Embarrassed, I turned my gaze away, but Adriana gently lifted my chin, bit her lip, and blinked at me teasingly. "My husband is handsome even when he's shy. How am I supposed to handle that?" My face burned, but I still gathered my courage and leaned in to kiss Adriana. A few days later, doctors at the city hospital reported that Michelle had been diagnosed with cancer. After receiving the news, Adriana, Old Master Sue, and I rushed to the hospital. Within just a few hours, Michelle seemed to have lost all vitality. She lay on the hospital bed, her face deathly pale, tubes attached all over her body, looking barely alive. The doctor said she had at most 5 months left to live. Of course, there might still be some unforeseen turn of events, but even if she survived, prison still awaited her. When she saw me enter, Michelle used all her strength to lift her hand, as if trying to reach me. I glanced at Adriana, and she nodded slightly. I stepped forward and stopped beside Michelle's bed, looking down at her frail form. Her breathing was shallow, her lips trembling as if she had countless words she wanted to say. I bent down slightly and finally heard her faint voice. "Frederick." I'm sorry. If we could start over, I would never betray you, although I had completely forgotten every detail of the past. Over these past days, I had already understood clearly what had happened, yet at that moment, I had nothing I wanted to say. I only replied calmly, "Get some rest." As soon as the words fell, a tear slipped from the corner of Michelle's eye, soaking into the pillow. She closed her eyes tightly, like a rose on the verge of withering. Visiting hours were over. Adriana took my hand and led me out of the ward, pulling me into her arms. "Don't overthink it. I'm here." Although old Master Su had been furious with Michelle before, faced with such a grim situation, he couldn't help but feel sorrow. That girl was always reckless. Now look at this. But there's nothing any of us can do. All we can do is try our best to treat her and leave the rest to fate. The public opinion Michelle Su had stirred up online earlier had indeed caused significant damage to the Su group. Adriana and I could only personally explain to the public that we truly loved each other, and that things were not as Michelle had claimed. After clarifying everything, we received sincere blessings from everyone and became the city's model couple. Because of Michelle's affairs, old Master Su also fell ill, his health declining noticeably. As a result, Adriana and I occasionally went to the hospital to visit Michelle. No matter what had happened in the past, and no matter what she said while lying in the hospital bed, I merely listened in silence. "Frederick, I betrayed you. This is all my retribution, and I'm willing to bear it." At that moment, Adriana wrapped her arms around my waist and kissed me affectionately. "Come on, it's time to go home for dinner. I made your favorite sweet and sour ribs." I turned back with a light smile. Let's go home." Adriana and I walked side by side into the sunlight, our laughter echoing along the way. Sunlight streamed into the hospital room, clashing starkly with Michelle's pale, haggard face. She looked at the two figures outside the window, a faint smile seeming to appear at the corner of her lips, before she slowly closed her eyes.